Hey, my name is Steve and I'm not a luthier, but I built this guitar. If I can do this, anyone can. Welcome to part 2 of the Corazon series. I'm going to show you how I stained and sealed this bad boy. Alright, the body is ready to start staining. It's been sanded multiple times with very fine sandpaper. It's got a really nice finish. I just put some mineral spirits on it to absorb all the dust, and I'm getting ready to stain. Alright, I am going to be using a bright red dye that I got from Trans Tint. I don't know if you can read that. This is a water-based. This is a concentrate that I mixed with water. I've got 32 ounces of water in this bucket here, in this paint bucket. I'm going to add the dye to that. I'm supposed to add 1 ounce for every 32 ounces. I put 32 ounces in there. I was given some advice from the guy at the store about opening this. He said don't hold it like this when you're breaking that seal, or else it'll squirt all over you. He said hold it from the side. And I'm just going to use a nail to puncture that top. That seemed like pretty good advice. So here I go. That's pretty bright red. That's what I was looking for. So I've just got an old t-shirt that I cut up that I'm going to use. Kind of like to make a ball out of it. And then just dip a corner in there. And I'm wiping it on with the grain. I really should be using rubber gloves, so I'm going to do that now before I get my hands dyed red. And also it helps keep the oils from your hands off the guitar, so that can affect how the wood absorbs the stain. So I'm just going to put some rubber gloves on and go back to work. I know it's an awfully bright red, but it's going to be an amazing guitar. So I am going to let this dry, let that absorb the stain a little bit, and I'll come back a little bit later, add another coat, make sure that that penetrates the wood really deeply. In the next step of the process after the stain, we're going to add some pore filler, which will darken the grain. And then we'll have to sand that off, so I just want to make sure that the stain penetrates deeply enough that a light sanding isn't going to change the color. I like that deep, rich, bright red color. So I'm going to let this dry, and we'll be back in a bit. Alright, I'm doing one more coat of red, just because I want a nice, deep, very rich color. So I'm going to do another coat. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, our stain, the stain dye has sat overnight. Pretty happy with the color. That's about what I was looking for. I'm getting ready to seal it. You can see I've added a handle just to make it easier to handle for the rest of the process when I'm finishing. And it's also got a little hook so I can hang it up to dry. That's also going to be very handy when we're doing the lacquer finish. So I can hang it to apply the lacquer. What we're doing now is we're sealing it with Zinsser. It's just a wood seal. After this, we're going to add a black pore filler, which is going to fill in all the grains, and the sealant will protect the red from the black dye, so it won't turn the red black. And it's just absorbing this sealer because it's so porous. It's absorbing it really quickly, which is good. Now I'll be sanding off the excess of this when it dries, so I'm not worried about, you know, the little drips and things. Those will sand off. Just wanting to make sure it's penetrating the wood to seal it. Otherwise, that color, that red color will absorb the black dye from the wood pore filler that I'm adding later. The purpose of that, you know, because it's such a porous wood, the black dye in the wood filler, or in the pore filler, is going to accentuate, it's going to darken the grain to a black. That's what I'm wanting. But I'm still wanting the original red color here. I'm just wanting to blacken the grain. All right, I'm done with the sealant for now. I'm going to hang it up to dry, and I'll come back to it later. Okay, the seal has dried, so now I'm going to sand. There's a few drips, things like that. I'm just wanting to get back to a smooth, soft surface again. This makes me a little nervous because, you know, we're now sanding on a painted surface. The edges, the corners, they sand more easily. I just don't want to bring up any of the color. Sanding I'm doing is just very light. I'm just trying to smooth out any of the drips, any of the buildup to the sealant. All right, the first pass was 400 grit. I'm now using 600 grit to just soften it a little more. Get ready for the next step in this process. All right, now that I've sanded that, I'm using some mineral spirits to remove the dust from sanding, to prepare the surface for the next step, which is going to be filling the pores and grain. You know, I did sand a little too much around this edge. I don't know if you can see that. But it's got... It just lightened a little bit along that edge. It's really difficult to not do that around the edges, but the pore filler will hopefully blend that in a little bit. All right, I have sanded the seal coat down. I've actually gone back with the stain and filled in some of these spots that were lightened a little bit. I just don't want to lose any red. And I'm getting ready for the next step of the process, which is a little bit scary to me because I'm now putting black pore filler, pore and grain filler onto the surface. The seal coat should keep that from penetrating the red, but allow it into the grain, which is just going to increase the contrast of the black against the red in the grain. And it's also going to give it a very smooth, glassy finish when all is said and done. So this is kind of a big step. This is the only part of this process that I've never done before. So it's a little bit scary for me. Find El Corazon Part 3 to see what happens next. And remember to like and subscribe if you found this information helpful. Thanks for watching.